everyone, I'm Ryan Lathan, Director of Marketing and Communications at Fort Worth Opera, and I'm super excited to be here with internationally acclaimed, award-winning baritone Octavio Moreno, who will soon star as the villainous Moncada in Hector, Armienta's Zorro, part of our 75th anniversary season. Hello, Octavio, how are you today?
Hi, Ryan, I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much. It's so great to see you again.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Thanks for sitting down with me to chat.
Of course. Hey, it's good company. It's morning, chilly morning, and a good cup of coffee.
Nice. I got mine too.
Nothing wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll just go right into this. So since 2017, you've been with us for 2 seasons as Laurentino in Cruzar la Cara de la Luna and Chiwit in El Pasado Nunca Se Termina. So it's great to have you back with us this season for Zorro. Can you tell us a little bit about your character of Moncada? He's definitely not your typical one coat of paint villain.
Yes, it's so interesting. You know, as a baritone, you get to play villains quite often. But that being said, I don't think that I've played a villain probably within the past 6 or 7 years. So it's so much fun to go back and play villains, which I adore. I love playing villains, especially a character like Moncada, because as you mentioned, he's not just the guy that goes here and there killing people and just being mean for the sake of being mean. Something that I find really interesting about Moncada is that though he may not be as big of a genius as Iago, for example, in Shakespeare's Othello, or Verdi's Othello for that matter, since we're talking opera, the danger in Moncada is that what he does, he thinks he's right. And that's what makes him dangerous. And that's what makes him evil, because he makes wrong choices, but he thinks he's right. And whomever or whatever gets in his way to achieve those ideas that he has, it's gone. It's not like I'm going to give you a chance to leave. No, like if you're in my way, I'm going to run over you. And that thought process is what makes him really interesting, because he's not, as I said, he's not the guy that goes with the sword here, killing here and there.
Right.
He's honest with his beliefs, and that honesty is what makes him more dangerous, because he's not screaming and yelling. He's just like, no, what I'm saying is right. So I think that's what makes Moncada complicated. You know, screaming, it's easy, or showing your gun or your sword, that's easy. But
It's
thinking that you're right when
quiet
you're wrong,
anger, that quiet anger.
exactly.
Yeah.
And on a smaller level, I think that thirst for power. That's also that it's like the cherry on top of the cake. So do you have a guy who will spare no expenses on whatever he needs to do to achieve his goals, which he thinks is right, and he has like his goal is not going to your truck vendor to get a burrito. No, his goal is to be like the governor or the president or the viceroy. I don't know, something big, right? So that's why he thinks people get in a lot of trouble when he's the one getting people in trouble.
As you've been sinking your teeth into this role, what have you discovered are some of your favorite moments throughout? I guess whether that's from a musical or an acting standpoint.
Well, I have to say this is a little bit of contradictory, or yeah, I think I want to leave it in contradictory, because you know, especially that you mentioned when you introduced me, you mentioned that I was playing 2 roles in the first 2 mariachi operas, which ethnically fit me properly, right? I looked the part very, very, very much, or at least I like to think it. But you know, in the case of Moncada, he is from Spanish Broda, and though, like, if you go to Spain, you see people with like a brownish skin, or say tan-ish skin. You know, when you think on Spain, it's a little bit more white. And when I played Chihuitl, and when I play Laurentino, well, it's a Mexican ethnical looking. But Moncada, when I was reading the lines and I was looking at the music, it was a little bit shocking in the way of, I've always, well, not always, but for the past few years with all these minorities uprising, all that stuff, I always thought, well, lately I've been playing only Mexicans. What's the deal? And then when I finally get to play someone that is not Mexican, it's like, oh my God, okay, now I gotta be this white guy, probably blonde, which I don't have neither or. And not only that, but his rhetoric is these Indians who are in this land before we came, and me referring to that denigrating word. Well, it's not a denigrated word per se, but he uses it in that way, right?
Right.
Like pushing people down. So making my peace with that, and of course, I believing and knowing and understanding that that's not the way I think, but that I have to be in the flesh of another person who does think like that. Making my peace with that is what was a little bit struggling and enriching and fulfilling, and all those nice adjectives on the idea that it just reiterates my beliefs, right? I believe that we are the same, we can be equal, and this guy is crazy, but I have to be this crazy guy. So that's what was challenging for me, I think.
You grew up in Mexico and you studied there. You got your Master of Music at the University of Houston. You went to AVA in Philly, and we were a part of the prestigious Houston Grand Opera Studio. Now you perform everywhere. So what advice do you have for young singers looking to find their place in this industry, especially now with the pandemic added into the equation and all of that craziness?
Right. Well, the pandemic, as like if you look into history books and all those learning tools, you'll see that this pandemic is not like the only pandemic that the world has ever been in. There's been several pandemics, and when it starts, we don't know anything about it, and then we start learning about it, and then we take care of it, and then we learn to live with it, especially when it's a virus, right? It's
Right.
like the flu. It's here, still among us, but our body learns to live with it, and we move on. So if you take that out of the equation, because eventually I firmly believe that we're gonna learn how to live with it and then just move on and go back to normal. My advice is, I'm gonna tell you what my father told me when I decided to study music. He said, I don't care what you study, as long as you firmly believe what you want to do and you try to be the best. And usually that's the same advice that I give to my two little girls, and to whomever asks. It's not so much the business. The business in itself is hard, but if you prepare yourself, you're ready for when the door opens. If like somebody says, okay, who knows this role? Oh, I know it. Oh, who's ready to sing this? I'm ready to sing it. So if you're ready for when the door opens, then opportunity is gonna happen by itself. But you really have to love what you do. You really have to be willing to, as in the Rocky movie, you need to be willing to stand up after you've been punched and keep moving forward. And if it pushes you down, stand up and keep moving forward. And it is a hard business, but if you love it, this is also something that I say to people when they ask me, there's no better feeling in life, economically speaking, as doing what you love and getting paid for it. Yeah. So eventually, if you put yourself to it, if you go to school, if you learn, if you read, if you study, if you practice, it'll pay off. And this does not apply to singing only. It applies to any field in life. Yeah. So I guess that's my answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've performed Marcello and La Boheme, Antonio and Pagliacci, and numerous other traditional and contemporary roles in operas across the world. But looking back at your career as you've carved out for yourself thus far, What are really some of the most memorable moments that have stuck out at you that you've had on the stage?
There are two. Up to this past December, there was only one, but now there are two. The first one was when I got to play Rigoletto for the first time. It was that father and daughter relationship. I didn't have it because I was married, but I didn't have any kids. So my only relation as far as acting was my sister. So when I was preparing my role, I was thinking, what if this had happened to me? And it was my sister involved in it. So it was hard, but when my firstborn was born, a couple years later, I got to play Rigoletto, and then it was a different world because I love my sister to death. But when my girl, because she's mine, at least now, but probably stop being mine at some point. But you know, she's so mine that when you get to that place on seeing your own flesh and blood in danger, then it changed my mind. My Rigoletto, I lived it in a different level. I experienced it in a different level. It was so heartfelt because I could see my baby girl in Gilda's portrayal when I was doing the performance as well, let alone the performances, even during the rehearsal process. So it was tough during the first part of the performances. It really got to me. There were, I think it was one or two times where I had to stop because I was at the verge of crying, especially on the finale. But then you put yourself to the limit, and then you know where's your limit, and then you hold back a little bit on stage so that you can keep performing. So that was up to this past December my most memorable memory. Excuse my redundancy. And then this past December, I got to perform El Milagro del Recuerdo, which is the last mariachi opera that was premiered in Houston. So I got to perform it here in Arizona. And there is a scene where Renata and Laurentino are talking about what's really important in life. Because Laurentino wants to go back to the United States to make a living, but she wants him to stay home in Mexico so that they can be a family. And it just hit me in a moment where I was thinking, do I really want to keep living my family for a month and a half to make a living and then come back? And then my girls are older, well, bigger. And do I want to keep missing that? Or do I want to keep doing these? How? And then it was difficult, especially during the rehearsal process. Again, I was also on the verge of crying because it hit me in a very personal way.
Right.
So those are my two most memorable parts in my career, as far as being on stage and relate that to my quote unquote normal life.
I saw you in Houston. You were wonderful, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you for sitting down with me today and talking. And I really, really look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. All you DFW opera lovers out there, don't miss your chance to see Octavio Moreno live here in Fort Worth at the world premiere of Hector Armienta's swashbuckling thriller Zorro, January 26th, 28th, and 30th at the historic Rosemarine Theater. Visit fwopera.org to secure your seats today. Have an awesome day, Octavio.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure.